Um, so now we will move over to the next part of our meeting with Secretary O'Brien. He has written, where's my book? I think I left my book downstairs, Mike. He has written two books. One, Not Be Moved, about the freedom fighters, and his second book is the Tougaloo Nine. And Mike has won a lot of awards for this book. He is our celebrity um, secretary, and we show him around and show him off everywhere we go. So, without further ado, we will have Mike and his presentation about the Tougaloo Nine. Thank you. I will go back on mute.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. It's wonderful to be able to share my research with you and the story of this book, which is getting a lot of good attention recently. I know Nikki showed her award from the Deltas. I always said that I wanted to be a Delta. If I could be any part of a sorority, I'd be wanting to be a Delta. But Miss Toombs now has turned my head, and I have got to really look closer at the alphas, AKAs. I mean, so this is a great realization that we got, wonderful, wonderful sororities in every direction, both the pink and the red. Um, so I'm going to try to share my screen. I'm not sure how successful I'm going to be, but let me. I think you saw it there for a minute, but I need to get the. Let's do that. But then I think I still have to. Is that going to be okay, Miss Lenore?
Yes, you should be able to share it. And we did see it for a minute. So just do what you
Yeah,
did before. There you
yeah,
go.
but the thing is, it's not. I guess I'll just go down. I'll just go down the slides on the side. I don't know. It's not in the show mode. That's what I'm not sure how I can make it get in. Oh, hey, there we go. All right, all right. So here we are. So for the last dozen years or so, I have been working on this book about the very first demonstration that occurred in the state of Mississippi during the Civil Rights era. And it was a library sit-in. The book is called The Tougaloo Nine, the Jackson Library Sit-in at the Crossroads of Civil War and Civil Rights. Uh, I hear a beep going on or something. Is somebody's there we go. Thank you. Um, and you'll see why that title comes into prominence a little bit later. But this is the story of how nine students from Tougaloo College, a historically black college just outside of Jackson, found a way in a very kind of quiet, a direct and nonviolent way of challenging the entire system of Jim Crow simply by entering a library. And the story is about not just that, but the fireworks that ensued afterwards, and also the timing of it to kind of throw in the face of the heritage America, you might say, the kind of craziness that they were inflicting on their black citizens. Um, I don't know if any of you, is anybody here familiar with Tougaloo College? Anybody?
Yes, I've been there.
Yeah.
Okay, Richard, all right, right,
I
right.
was in 1964 in the Freedom Summer. I was in Mississippi.
Is that right? Well, we're going to have to talk. We're going to have to talk. Well, Tougaloo College was really the heart of the resistance during the Jim Crow South in Mississippi. It was a privately run college run by the American Missionary Association, initially an abolitionist organization that
Oh,
turned its focus to
I'm sorry.
education. I'm sorry? Turned its focus to education after the war. And it created some really impressive uh, higher learning institutions in just about every southern state, generally in the capital city. So you have Fisk in Nashville, you have Houston Tillotson in Austin, Texas, you have Tougaloo here in Jackson, you have Dillard in Louisiana, Baton Rouge. So, it's an amazing organization that did great stuff for education. And people who went to Tougaloo from Mississippi would say that it was the only place in the entire state that they really felt free, and that they could say and do, what they felt as Black people in Mississippi. Now, I have a question for you. Does anybody know someone of prominence within our organization, the NAACP, who went to Tougaloo College? Just go ahead and unmute yourself if you know who that is. Nobody?
Joan Trumpauer did, didn't she?
Joan Trumpauer did, but she is not within our organization. She's not a
No.
member of the NAACP.
Oh, she isn't. Okay.
Not at this time. We're working on her. She is a Delta, however. The most important person in our organization,
Derek.
Derek
Derek
Johnson. Yes, indeed. Went to Tougaloo College in the 90s. He's a proud Eagle, and I think it's an amazing testament to Tougaloo that it turns out people like Mr. Johnson. There's another very prominent politician who also went to Tougaloo. Anybody have some thoughts about who that might be? This is the audience participation part of the presentation. Well, that would be Congressman Benny Thompson from Mississippi also went to Tougaloo College. He went there from 64 to 68, Richard. He actually knew some of the Tougaloo Nine, and I was able to visit with him by phone, and then at his office, they gave me a tour of his office, and in the most prominent part of his office is a portrait of the Tougaloo Nine. And he told me by phone that because he sees them every day, they inspire him every single day to do his public service that he is involved in. So it's a testament to the legacy of the Tougaloo Nine that we have, they have projected themselves into the future. I'll tell you quickly how I got into this, having this job of writing the book in a little bit, but since we're talking about Tougaloo College, this is their chapel. It's the center point of the college. I just watched a little bit of their graduation exercises. They ring the bell that's in that tower at every graduation, and they would also ring it anytime there was a significant event going on with the college, particularly regarding civil rights in the 60s. This is the inside of the chapel, which has been totally restored thanks to some funds that Congressman Thompson was able to find for the college. But this is where the Tougaloo Nine and others met the very esteemed NAACP leader, Medgar Evers, who died of an assassin's bullet 2 years later. We're talking about 1961. March of 1961 is when the Tougaloo Nine did their original demonstration, which was a year after, the Greensboro sit-in in North Carolina, and then all the sit-ins that happened afterwards. The issue was that nothing was happening in Mississippi. It was so locked down. It was so oppressed that people were afraid to step out. It was dangerous for them. And these 9 students just said, we're going to do it. But it was really with Medgar's support and assistance. He went to Tougaloo, talked up the fact that something had to start happening, and it probably should start happening here at Tougaloo since you're a private institution and the arm of the very oppressive state doesn't quite reach into the boundary of Tougaloo. The other person who was very instrumental with the students was Chaplain John Mangrum. He doesn't get a whole lot of attention these days, but he was really the one who taught the students about nonviolence, worked with them to make sure they didn't react if the police did anything, harmful to them, or if a crowd of people gathered. But the idea was to do it in a library so that there wouldn't be a crowd of people. Libraries are quiet places, right? And you're always being shushed. So it was unlikely that a crowd would gather there. Here are the 9. I'm going to take you through really quickly just to give you their names because I think they deserve at least that. there are three contingents, one from Memphis, one from the Delta and Riverside, and one from Central and South Mississippi. We'll take you through real quick. This is Joseph Jackson Jr., who was the president of the NAACP chapter, a college chapter on campus. And this is totally an NAACP event. I really want to stress that. From beginning to end. SNCC hadn't gotten to Mississippi yet. CORE wasn't there. The Freedom Rides hadn't happened. This was before all of that. And it was totally an NAACP event driven by the chapter at the Tougaloo College and by Medgar Evers. So that's Joe Jackson. Also from Memphis was Ethel Sawyer and James Sammy Bradford. Now, Sam is the one who got me involved in this book. I was at an event where we were honoring my first book, the We Shall Not Be Moved, which was about the Jackson Woolworth sit-in that happened 2 years later. And I went up and shook Sammy's hand, and within 30 seconds, he was pulling me closer and says, "You know, I know why that Jackson Woolworth sit-in gets all the attention because it was so dramatic." And then he looked me straight in the eyes and he said, "But we were the first," you know? And he really kind of invited me in to think about writing about their story, which now has come to fruition. Those from the Delta, Janice Jackson. I always have to remember how to say Janice and not Janet. Janice Jackson from Clarksdale, the home of the blues. Albert Lassiter, 6'5", Albert Lassiter from the Civil War town of Vicksburg, and Geraldine Edwards from the plantation capital of the world, Natchez, Mississippi. Those three were also part of the involvement, as was Alfred Cook from Edwards, Meredith Anding, only native Jacksonian in the group, and that was important because he had direct connections to Medgar. And then Evelyn Pierce from the Klan-infested town of Laurel, Mississippi, in South Mississippi. Here's the picture of the library. It still exists. It's still in the same spot. It's one of those brutalist 1950s concrete kind of buildings. This shows you how close it is to the state capitol, just a few blocks away. So it's right in the center of the power of the state of Mississippi. You have to kind of imagine there's not too many pictures of the students actually arriving. So you kind of have to imagine them getting out of their cars right here on State Street to the right and walking up into those doors. Janice in particular said it was a surreal experience, even though she was probably the most confident of all of those who entered the library that day. She said when she went into that white space and realized she wasn't supposed to be there and didn't know exactly what was going to happen, she really had almost like an out-of-body experience, like, what am I doing here? What have I done, you know? But she kept on moving. And what they did, just like Sammy Bradford is doing here, is they all just went to the stacks or went up to the librarian and picked out a book and sat down and started to read. That's as simple as it gets, right? The librarian, of course, called the police. The police showed up just about 10 minutes later. Very simple gathering. They just said, the police said, if you leave right now, we won't charge you with anything. And we'll just say this was a youthful indiscretion. So if you just get up and leave now, there'll be no consequences. Of course, the whole idea was to have a legal case built around the sit-in. So they didn't get up until the police said, "You're under arrest." And at that, they immediately stood up because they wanted to be charged with breach of the peace, which was a new law put on the books just a year before to try to stop these kinds of situations from occurring. They didn't want to if they stayed seated, they could have been charged with resisting arrest. And they wanted this to be a test case for that breach of peace law. So they all got up and started walking. You see Geraldine sitting down, that's Meredith in the front. You can see how tall Albert Lassiter is in the back. And way in the back, you can see Ethel just getting her book up. Now, there is a funny story about Ethel that she had her book, and when the police said, "Okay, you're under arrest," she went to close her book and realized for the whole time she'd been sitting there, it was upside down. so she said she was so embarrassed because she thought the police would see it and make certain assumptions about the students. But years later, she started laughing about it. Um, this is the only picture, and this is a video screen capture of the all nine are in the picture, along with just about nine police all around them, escorting them to the police vehicles. This is a picture that I think is fascinating from a number of perspectives. The police are trying to lecture the young women, and they are having none of it. If you look at Janice's face, if you look at Ethel's face in particular, with her nose up in the air, she's having none of it. She says, "Don't talk to me. Just get me where I'm going. I'm not going to have any of this. You shouldn't be keeping us out of the library." And that was one of the arguments that our parents, they were all Mississippi residents, except for Sam. They all had ties to Mississippi. We pay taxes. We should be allowed to be in this library just like everybody else. Here they are just getting ready to go into jail. Now, the interesting thing about this is this has a national NAACP connection as well. Roy Wilkins, just 10 days before, had issued a statement to all the branches in the country, and I'll just read it to you real quick. The NAACP has warned its units in 45 states that the outpouring of pro-South propaganda during Civil War centennial celebrations could undermine or strike a hard blow at our present-day movement towards equality. And in a special memorandum, the NAACP has advised countermeasures to be taken. What you don't know, and the reason the Civil War is listed in the title, is this was planned to really poke an eye in the face of those who were planning the Civil War centennial. And most people don't realize that the Civil War happened exactly 100 years earlier. The Civil Rights Movement happened, 1960 to 1965 was the student-led movement. Civil Wars 1861 to 1865. So these commemorations of the Civil War were happening all over the South at the very same time the Civil Rights Movement was going on. And Medgar and Mangrum planned this so that it would happen just before the Civil War centennial in Jackson, which was a major event. Here's what we got. Governor Ross Barnett coming up Capitol Street in a horse-drawn carriage, just like you might have seen in the 1800s. There was a huge parade on Capitol Street, the central business district of Jackson. Here's the largest Confederate flag ever made, belonging to the University of Mississippi, carried up Capitol Street. You see the old Capitol at the very top of the street to lead off this parade. It was the full Gone with the Wind kind of mythology on display. 3,000 Confederate people, dressed up like Confederate soldiers. There were 35,000 people on the street for the parade, largest parade ever in the state of Mississippi up until that time, with majorettes. I just want to show if my screen will do this. Do you see a little stuff here on the ground? The only Black people you would have seen that day were those who were cleaning up the poop that was left by the horses that were carrying the wagons up the street. Here's a picture of that. There was even a picture in the newspaper of these two Black men, probably city employees, scooping up the poop. That was the only Black people you would have seen on Capitol Street that day. Women, of course, dressed up as war widows or in their hoop skirts. Full Gone with the Wind. This is even a scene from Gone with the Wind that's being represented here in one of the displays. So, mint juleps and magnolias. Well, that went on all day. Not just the parade, but there was a pageant that was done with a reenactment of the secession. They had a tea at the governor's mansion, and then that evening they had not one, not two, but four Confederate balls that evening, where they really got decked out. In the meantime, the students are let go. The one thing you didn't know is that the students from the day before were not immediately let go. They were kept in jail all night long. They were kept overnight for 32 hours. because the sheriff left town and said, I'm not going to accept the bail of these people. They're going to have to stay in jail. And so it was a harrowing night for them. And they were in jail while all this was going on. Between the break between the tea at the governor's mansion and the Confederate balls, the police let the Tougaloo Nine go. The bail had been paid, and they went back to a huge celebration with the bell ringing on campus to welcome them back. The very next day, they're brought to trial. So there's 3 major days: the day of the sit-in, the day of the Confederate parades, and then their trial is the very next day at the municipal court building downtown. And imagine this was a recent picture, but everything looks exactly the same. I don't think they had the railings up the stairs, but everything else was exactly the same as it would have looked. Imagine there were police dogs on either side. There were probably 25 police in this area protecting the building. When the students arrived, they tried to stop them from going in until somebody yelled out and said, "Hey, those are the defendants, let them through." Um, there were so many people who wanted to get into the building, both black and white. The police, after the courtroom filled up, had them stand across the street, of course, in segregated fashion. So blacks on one side, whites on the other. When the students arrived and were starting to go up the stairs, the black crowd, of citizens, peaceful, not doing anything wrong, just cheered and started clapping for the students. So finally, somebody is standing up, and the police went crazy. We would call what happened next was a police riot. They got their billy clubs out. They got the dogs chasing people away. Um, let's go to the next slide. This is one of the first uh, evidences we have of police dogs being used against private citizens. They're not even demonstrating, they just happen to be waiting. So this is 2 years before Birmingham and America wakes up to the fact that dogs are being used against citizens. Um, Here's another dog chasing a black photographer who was trying to get into the courthouse and was chased away. Here's an older 81-year-old man whose arm was broken by a billy club, by him being beat by a policeman chasing him away from the courthouse. So, and that's Medgar, of course, pointing to it for a publicity photo for the NAACP. The FBI was brought in for the very first time, and this is Medgar's testimony. Of course, it's heavily redacted, but it shows you that for the first time, the federal government began to take this kind of stuff seriously, even though there were no serious consequences afterwards. At least we have the affidavits that were taken that day. Well, back at Tougaloo College, the students made it through their trial, were fined $100 each and 30 days in jail, but it was suspended if they would agree not to participate in any further demonstrations. That was really the, the mayor and the city politicos wanted to make sure that this didn't continue. They had no idea what was coming. The Freedom Rides would come 2 months later, and then the Tougaloo Nine got knocked off the front pages of the paper. But this was a really big deal at the time, and they felt that they needed to insist that there'd be no more demonstrations. So what could they do? They didn't want to spend the next 30 days in jail, so they said, okay. But here they are back at Tougaloo, happy and thrilled that they got out alive, frankly. Years later, of course, Jackson would embrace them. This was in 2017. A historic marker was put up right at the site of the library. You can see that at the left. There are some of them down at the bottom celebrating. That's Sammy Bradford to the left. I'll just go through Sammy, Janice, Ethel, Geraldine, Meredith. So many of them were there, and Alfred Cook, if you can see him. And at the Civil Rights Museum, now that is in Jackson, also opened in 2017, they have a wonderful display of the Tougaloo Nine in the Civil Rights Museum in Jackson. And right underneath their mugshots are the ones standing. So I think it's a pretty cool representation. here they are when I interviewed them. This was Sammy and Al Lassiter. There's Geraldine pointing to herself. That's at Tougaloo College. Tougaloo has done a huge floor-to-ceiling mural of them at their Benny Thompson Civil Rights building. There's Ethel and Janice, best friends forever. They met on the bus on the way to Tougaloo. Neither one of them had ever been to Tougaloo, and somehow they happened to get on the same bus going to Tougaloo. Ethel from Memphis, Janice from Clarksdale, and they became best friends and stayed that way forever. Ended up in St. Louis. There's Evelyn Pierce, who's the only one I didn't get to really talk to. She had predeceased my involvement in the project, but she had a fascinating after story. She married the brother of older brother of Malcolm X later in life, and did a lot of great work up in the Detroit area. Here I am with Meredith Anding, Joseph Jackson Jr., and yes, that's me in the middle, but that's Geraldine and Al Cook. Tougaloo has done them wonders and gave them an honorary doctorate degree in humanities in 2021 on the 60th anniversary of the event. So the book is the Tougaloo Nine, and I I I have something to show you if you can see this. Um, it won the Mississippi Historical Society Book of the Year award uh, for 2026. So it's a big honor for me to have been able to put this thing together, and I'm thrilled that I had a chance to share it with you. Thank you. Thank you, President Nikki. The QR code is you can get more information about the book if you go there.
That's awesome, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you. Who is that? Iris?
Yes,
Iris,
fantastic.
you've done some research on Mississippi, haven't you?
Yes, but I did most of mine on South Carolina.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, but Mississippi is a part of the South, that deep South and the Civil Rights movement. Ugh. Yep,
And
they
the
go
fact
hand
that
in hand.
it overlapped with the Civil War centennial. It's such a weird
Oh,
combination.
wow.
And I call it's like the heritage America versus the multicultural America. Like they're doing battle there, right?
Oh my God. Yeah. Are any questions for our secretary, Mike? Mike, do you have a link to your book that you can put in the chat?
I could that QR code will take you there though.
It'll take you straight there. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Mike, I
any
have a question. Excuse me. I read the first one first and I haven't gotten to the second one, but if someone has both of them, they haven't read either, do you recommend they read Tougaloo 9 first?
Well, I call the Tougaloo Nine a prequel to the first book because
Mhm.
I you can read either one. I'll be happy if you have either one. But the first one was really a last Sammy said, it was a very dramatic sit-in, and it's an iconic photograph that's on the cover, and it it's a page turner. And this one, I didn't feel like I had given enough attention to the earlier development of the movement. That's why I wrote this one, and it really does help give the background of how we came to that apex of the Woolworth sit-in. One quick note: this in July, NAACP gives out an annual award, um, and now I'm trying the Spin Garn Medal, which is their like top award for community engagement and civil rights work. And it is going to a gentleman, Reverend Amos Brown, who got his start by starting the Youth Council in Jackson, Mississippi in 1957. And he has an amazing career. He was at Morehouse while this was going on, but he got his start with Medgar in Mississippi in 1957 and 58 and went on to great work. Now he's in San Francisco. So it's a kind of a full circle thing for me, and I'm hoping to be there when he gets that.